Welcome into this video. It's been a while since I've done a film breakdown video for BYU football, but this most recent game against SMU, I've just had so many thoughts on my mind that I felt like I needed to get them out somehow. So this video is more for me than it is for anybody else. I wanted to make sense of this game and some of the thoughts that I've been having and just get it down into a video. So hopefully whoever watches this can learn something as well. I'm indebted to the ACC because they made this 25-minute cut up of the BYU versus SMU game, and so we're gonna go through most of the plays in this 25-minute video. I figure I'll probably break this video up into two different segments. I'll do one on the offense, and then I'll do one on the defense. So let's go ahead and get started. This first play is third down on BYU's first drive. BYU here, they run one of their kind of signature third and long plays that A-Rod has been calling for years. And I would say this play is usually fairly successful. They run Reiner Swanson here on kind of a really shallow drag route. He actually ends up catching it shallow, even behind the line of scrimmage here, which allows these receivers over here to begin blocking before he even catches the ball. Because the ball is caught behind the backfield, they can do that, and it's not called pass interference. So let's go ahead and watch here. I think Reiner Swanson does a fantastic job here of breaking some tackles. So you see he cuts back behind the line of scrimmage. You got a good effort there from LJ Martin to block some guys. And then Reiner's just out there being an athlete. And I think we all want to see more of Reiner Swanson. He showed on that play what kind of playmaking ability he has. I think the problem right now is he's stuck behind some good players. We've seen some really good plays from Mata'ava Ta'ase. I'll talk more about Keanu Hill later in this video, but I think Keanu Hill's a really good player too. I think defenses are keying on him, and that's part of why we haven't seen him be as productive as maybe we would hope to see him. So picking up this very next play, this is after a really nice play by Reiner Swanson. This was one of Jake Retzloff's worst plays of the game. So let's go ahead and watch here. You've got some sort of confusion at the snap. A lot of people have theorized that it was probably supposed to be handed off on that reverse to Cody Epps, and it was just a mistimed snap. And when it really comes down to it, like, yeah, you never want to see that sort of confusion before the play. But Jake just needs to hold on to that ball. A lot of people are really upset with Jake Retzloff because of the interceptions that he threw in this past game. And I am too, especially the first interception he threw was really bad. But to me, Jake Retzloff's fumbling issue is a more potent problem than his interception issue. I think the broadcast said that he had fumbled 9 times in the 6 games that he had started. And that's just ridiculous. It's inexcusable. A lot of those fumbles have come on kind of a fumbled exchange between him and the running back on zone read type mesh plays. But it's just something you cannot have. He needs to have 2 hands on the ball. On this play, it looks to me like, after he has it, you see him, he almost kind of has the ball down on his hip, and that defensive lineman gets his hand on it and is able to strip it away. We just can't have it. All right, coming back on the next possession, we've got a 2nd and 10 here. BYU puts out a designed rollout here. You'll see LJ Martin come right here into the flat to block for him. They bring Cody Epps on a drag. I forget who it is up here at the top of the screen. I think it might be Darius Laster, who's out of picture. It kind of looks like he might run a bit of like a comeback route. And then I want to say Chase Roberts is running a backside post or something like that. And so here you see some of the good things that Jake can do. He's always been pretty good at creating something when he's on the run. I will say this about Jake. Jake has a pretty good, he's got pretty good touch. When he needs to layer a ball in over a defender, we've had good quarterbacks in the past who struggle with that skill. Taysom Hill comes to mind. Taysom was a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal quarterback for BYU. But I remember especially in that last year just feeling like Taysom was unable to vary up the tempo on his throws. He wasn't very good at kind of lofting it in over a defender. And so this is a skill that not every quarterbacks have. And while Jake certainly has his flaws, I think this play demonstrates one of his strengths, which is being able to float a pass in over a defender. You also see on this play part of what makes Cody Epps such a special player. He just has a fantastic ability to find soft spots in zones and sit down or just kind of subtly adjust his movement, get into an open spot, and then make plays after the catch. It's one of the things that makes Cody Epps such a great player. This next play, we've got a 3rd and 5. BYU comes out, runs kind of a flood concept to this to the trip side over here. Flood concept, generally speaking, you'll have a player in the flat, a player going kind of on a deeper route, either a corner or a go route, and then you've got one player on either kind of like a deeper out route. And so you're just kind of putting these defenders in a bind by making them pick a player to guard. So let's see how BYU does it here. BYU also sprints Jake Retzloff out here. I think that Jake is much more effective when they give him half field reads and allow him to throw on the move. We see here he throws it to Marion. I thought maybe this is a bit of a turn down. It looked to me like if he would have thrown with some anticipation to Chase Roberts here, they could have had a easier completion just right there. Boom, throw it to Chase Roberts. May have been an easier completion. But you never know. Maybe this cornerback or I forget, maybe this defender here would have come down and been able to break up the pass. Either way, they do end up completing the pass. Keelan Marion makes a nice catch and comes down with it, even though the ball comes out here, but they reviewed it, overturned it, and it was a catch for a first down for BYU. Very next play after that catch from Keelan Marion, BYU comes out in 12 personnel, which is one running back, 2 tight ends. You have Keanu Hill here, kind of in an H-back alignment, Mata'ava Ta'ase right here. Keelan Marion is here. I don't know who they have playing the X receiver down out of screen here. But BYU runs a real creative play here. They do a fake pitch out to the right. And then I want you to watch what happens here. Keanu Hill, as I said earlier, we haven't seen him be as productive as I think we assumed he would be. I think he only has about 2 catches on the season so far. But I want you to just watch how many defenders are keying on him. He kind of comes out here and runs a wheel route. And then you have Ta'ase, who runs kind of a delay seam up the middle. And if you saw the game, you know that Ta'ase is going to score on this play. But I think this is the perfect example that even though Keanu Hill hasn't been as productive as we want him to be, he's affecting the game in very real ways. Teams know that he was a former receiver and not just kind of some scrub who had to change positions because he wasn't good enough. Keanu Hill's been a really good player for us for multiple seasons. And so I think if you watch, there's like 3 defenders that are all kind of keeping their eye on Hill and following him. Ta'ase gets forgotten and is able to get in for a score. Nice catch by Ta'ase. I think he maybe made it a little harder on himself than it needed to be. If he could have gone up and caught it on that first attempt instead of bobbling it, he wouldn't have fallen on it and knocked the air out of himself. Either way, though, it's a great play. Pretty nice throw by Jake Retzloff. Maybe you could say he needs to bring it down a little bit, but it's hard to complain too much on a touchdown. This next play may have been one of the most impactful plays of the game. We just see kind of a straight run up the middle. Kind of looks like maybe inside zone to me. But this is the play where LJ Martin kind of gets his ankle rolled up on. and it's kind of almost a forgettable play. It's a decent game, or a decent gain. If they can do that on every play, they'd be doing pretty well. Looks like maybe a gain of 4 or so, maybe just 3. But yeah, without LJ Martin in the game, BYU's offense just ground to a halt. And I think what makes LJ so special is he's just got great vision. Kind of a similar player to Tyler Algier in that way. He's not the fastest guy in the world. You look at him run and you say, yeah, he's not that special. But his vision, I think, is very special. Even last year, when he was a freshman, there were just a lot of plays where it seemed like Aiden Robbins couldn't find the right place to run, and LJ Martin was able to be a more effective runner in a lot of ways just because he was able to pick his way through the line of scrimmage very well. I think so far this season he looks just as good, if not better. The other thing to me that makes LJ Martin such a special player is his contact balance. He's not the biggest running back in the world. He put on some pretty good weight over the offseason. And so I think at this point he's up to about 220 pounds or so. LJ Martin isn't necessarily the kind of guy that's just going to run you over. But the thing that makes him special is that he gets hit and he doesn't fall down. And that sounds like a very simplistic way of saying it, like, duh, Blake, of course that's a good thing to have as a football player. But not everybody has that. And you've got some really special players in the NFL. One NFL player that comes to mind for me is a guy like Alvin Kamara, who is bigger than you think, but he's not necessarily a guy that trucks people, but he's a guy that gets hit and he just kind of slips and bounces off of people instead of losing his balance and falling down. And I think LJ Martin has a little bit of that in him. Hopefully the ankle injury that he sustained in this game won't keep him out for too long. If I'm BYU, I'm in no rush to get him back against Wyoming. I think Wyoming is a team that BYU should be able to beat pretty easily without LJ Martin. So if it's me, I'm resting him up against Wyoming and letting guys like Enoch Nawahine and Miles Davis carry the load in that game. And hopefully he can be back in time for the Kansas State game. 3rd and 2 here. BYU comes out and runs speed option. This is a play that we run a lot on 3rd downs with varied success. This one doesn't end up working out, and I want to talk about exactly why. So we see Jake come out here, and he kind of tries to threaten the line of scrimmage. That's the thing. The quarterback needs to come out. They need to threaten those defenders to make them hopefully commit to the quarterback. And then you see right here, kind of threatens inside, but then it almost like he stumbles over his feet just a little bit. If he's able to pitch it quick there, I think maybe Ropati is able to make it to the edge. But Jake it seems like maybe he stumbled just a hair, and that split second that it delayed the pitch was enough for these players here to commit to rushing to the outside, and they're able to stop Hinckley. Keanu Hill also wasn't able to hold that block against his defender, and that's obviously the other thing that blew up that play. We've got a 3rd and 8 here. This is a play that I think a lot of BYU fans really hate. I think part of the reason why a lot of BYU fans are calling for A-Rod to lose his job right now are due to plays like this. This sort of play really rubs fans the wrong way because it's 3rd and 8, and yet we're going to see that BYU just runs a run up the middle for, 4 or 5 yards. It's a decent gain, but it's not what you need on a 3rd and 8, right? And so anyway, this is something that the coaches have talked a lot about. And you can agree with this philosophy or not, but the way that the coaches explain it is that a lot of the time on 3rd and medium to 3rd and long, they aren't necessarily trying to get all of that yardage in one go. They're trying to get some of it to set up a easy 4th down conversion. So like I said, you can agree with that philosophy or not, But the truth remains, BYU's not necessarily trying to get all 8 of those yards back right there. I think a lot of the time BYU is trying to, in those situations, the defense is thinking, okay, we need to make sure we stop them from getting these 8 yards. So the defense is obviously they're thinking pass. So sometimes you can surprise a defense in that situation. Like I said, I don't always love that. In this sort of field position, I don't mind it too much. 3rd and 8 is a fairly long distance to be able to make up that much yardage to make it an easy 4th down conversion. And we see here that BYU didn't end up getting enough. They ended up punting right after this play. So whether you like it or not, that's up to you. But that is what the coaching staff is trying to accomplish here. They're trying to get 5 or 6 yards here, set up 4th and 3, 4th and 2. And when they have that type of situation, they go for it almost always. And BYU's 4th down conversions in this game were actually good. I think they ended up being the 3rd down conversion rate in this game was really poor. It was 2 for 13 or something like that, if I remember right. But the 4th down conversion, I believe, was 2 out of 3. And so, this philosophy can be a bit annoying to watch sometimes, but I think it can be fairly effective. We have 4th and 1 here. This was one of the plays and play calls, but also execution that I didn't like at all in this game. I think that A-Rod is maybe being ripped apart a little too much in this game. I think he was far from perfect, but I think that a lot of BYU fans are a little bit hysterical right now in their A-Rod takes. But this play I didn't like at all. One of my biggest issues here is that at this point we've lost LJ Martin, and Hinckley Rapati just went down as well. And so we have Miles Davis in the game. Miles is a good player, but I think Miles is a gadget player for BYU. I do not think that he is an every down back. I don't like him in short yardage, especially if you're going to try to do anything up the middle. I talked about how good LJ's vision is and contact balance is. And I think the differences between LJ and Miles Davis are just a perfect example of what I was talking about. Miles is probably bigger and faster than LJ Martin. If you were just playing pickup football at a turkey bowl, I think just about anyone would choose Miles Davis for their team before they chose LJ Martin. Just because he looks the part even a little bit more. Now, I don't necessarily think this play was Miles Davis's fault. We'll see some stuff that happened with the blocking. But I just don't like seeing Miles Davis in there. I don't know if that is on A-Rod necessarily. A-Rod's up in the booth. Maybe he can specifically request a running back. But to me, this is who the running back is on any given play. Probably has more to do with Harvey Unga than it does with A-Rod. And so I think this was, I would much rather see Enoch Nawahine in, and we saw that they started going more to Enoch later in the game than to Miles. To me, Enoch is truly your number 3 running back, not Miles Davis. If everyone is healthy, you're going to see Miles Davis more than you're going to see Enoch. But just because he does have a skill set that none of our other running backs do, he has that really nice speed. But I would have liked to see Enoch in on this play. What we see happen here, they bring Darius Laster across motion. BYU likes to do that. Sometimes it can help to keep some of these edge defenders and get linebackers flowing in the wrong way, just because of the threat of the zone or of the jet sweep here. It looks to me, the blocking here, I am not a offensive line guy. I'm trying to learn more and more about offensive line play and run scheme. This to me looks like an inside zone. We get zone stepping, especially from these 3 players to the left. This player right here, number 81 for SMU, makes a really nice play. He does kind of a sidestep swim around Connor Pay, And then this player, number 24, might be the best player on SMU's defense. He had a phenomenal game. You'll see him. He jets inside, jumps over Connor Pay. And between the two of these guys, they're really the ones that blow up this. This next play is 4th and 1. This is one of the calls that I had some issues with. Not so much with the play call as with the personnel that's in the game. Miles Davis is in the game. Miles is a good player, but to me, he's a gadget player. He's a guy you use on pitches, on speed option, jet sweep, stuff like that. But he's not a guy that I want in on short yardage situations. I would have liked to see Enoch Nawahine in here. And we saw BYU go to Enoch a lot more later in the game. I don't think that that having Miles in the game in this situation is on A-Rod necessarily. He's up in the box. I don't know exactly how BYU manages their substitutions, but I would imagine that Miles being in the game here has a lot more to do with Harvey Unga than it does with A-Rod. With that being said, BYU comes out here. They run what looks to me maybe like inside zone. I can't tell for sure. I'm not a great offensive line expert or anything like that. But we see kind of a fake jet sweep action here from Darius Lassiter. Keanu Hill also comes across the formation to cut off the back end, You see zone steps here from these linemen. Caleb Etienne steps out. I'm not sure if that's by design or if he was stepping the wrong way. Like I said, I don't know these schemes all that well. But what we see happen here is that this guy, number 81, makes a really nice play. He's able to do a swim move on Waylon Lapuaho here. And then 24 is able to come in here. Waylon Lapuaho, after he kind of whiffs on 81, is falling down. 24 jumps over him and is able to make a heck of a play in the backfield. It also looks like Keanu Hill might have kind of gotten blown up as well. So let's watch it here. There's a few different angles on this that we can see. 24 comes through. Looks like Braden Kime also kind of got beat on this play. So this one was just kind of rough, you know. This one was just kind of rough. 34 beats beats Braden Kime. There's just multiple wins from this defense, multiple losses from BYU. I've got it going in slow-mo here, so maybe we can see some of these line actions here. Look at 81, makes a great play. 24 makes a great play. 34 makes a good play. The other team is good too. You know, we were not expected to win this game for a reason. SMU is a pretty good team. They've got a good defense. And anyway, I think we were lucky to come out of this game with a win for multiple reasons. And this is one of them. You know, you don't get all of them. So this play is on the drive right before halftime, where we went down to set up for a field goal. Jake made a few nice plays here. He was able to hit Chase Roberts a little earlier, just kind of on a little curl or out route. Then he scrambled twice, I believe, and this is the play that set us up for a decent position to kick a field goal. He is able to go to the right, cuts up, makes a nice throw there to Keelan Marion. I also like the presence of mind here. I hadn't noticed this before, but look at how fast Keelan Marion just boom, right to his knees, doesn't try to cut up field and run and get tackled. That's some pretty good presence of mind there by Keelan Marion. And a nice play by Jake to avoid pressure, make a nice strike. You know, you can't ask for too much more than that. We gave ourselves a shot to kick a long field goal. It's a field goal that our kicker has made in practice. And he missed it in the game, but we put ourselves in a position to score there, and so I thought that was actually a really nice drive at the end of the first half by Jake Retzloff. I think that Jake Retzloff often functions really well in end of half and end of game type situations. To me, when he struggles the most is kind of in the middle of a game when there's not as much going on. So it makes me wonder if maybe one of the things you can do with Jake to help him settle down a little bit when he's in one of his funks like he was in this game is give him an opportunity to play with some tempo, do a little bit of hurry up, no huddle, let him run a little bit, and get him on the move. Get him on the move with some rollouts. I think that all of those things kind of help Jake Retzloff to settle down a little bit and play a little bit better. This next play comes right after halftime. This is one of the best plays of the game from Darius Laster. Just a really nice individual effort after the catch. As far as the passing concept that we had going on here, it was a play action, and we had kind of this is something that BYU does quite a bit. We had kind of a deep over route from Lassiter. We had a dig route here from Cody Epps, and then on the backside, Chase Roberts looked like he was running a post. This is something that we do quite a bit. This sometimes this over route is open because he can just run away from his defender. Also, that over route sometimes can pull this safety or linebacker type, whoever's covering this zone, can pull him over, and so then this dig route is open. This is a play that BYU runs. Variations of this concept is something BYU runs quite a bit. Jake stands tall in the pocket there, delivers a nice strike, and then Lassiter just a stud, shoving people off of him, refusing to go down. I'm excited to see what Darius Lassiter does for us this year. He's a heck of a player. So in 2 plays, we get the full Jake Retzloff experience. We have a great play, the play before, where he throws a strike to Darius Lassiter. And then we have this play, which I think was probably his... I don't think there's any doubt this was his worst play of the game. Jake just needs to learn that there are times when it's okay to take a sack. It's okay to not get lots of yardage on every play. And kudos to Keanu Hill for hustling and chasing down that guy. Like I said, this number 24 is a really good player. He makes a nice play here. Anyway, this was Jake's worst play of the game. This has been Jake's biggest issue. Fumbling is a big issue for Jake. And then I would also just say trying to do too much when nothing is available to him is Jake's other biggest issue. This play is unexcusable. If Jake does not get benched going forward into Wyoming, and I don't think he will, the fact that BYU stuck with him in this game makes me think there's no way they're going to bench him for the Wyoming game. But the coaches really do need to have a sit down with Jake Retzloff and talk to him and say this sort of play cannot happen. We can't afford to have this sort of play, especially with a defense like ours. Take the sack and punt it away, and we have a good enough defense that if we're not putting ourselves in horrible situations like that, we're going to be able to win a lot more games. I don't always love some of A-Rod's down-to-down play calling, but my goodness, does this guy know how to design a nice trick play. So here we have Jake Retzloff and Enoch Nawahine lining up in the backfield. They shift over, and so Enoch is getting a direct snap. He hands the ball off to Retzloff, who then does a fake reverse and is able to throw it for a really nice game. This play is pretty phenomenal play design from Aaron Roderick. Once again, you see defenses just kind of forgetting about Taase. He's a guy that has shown now that he can be a good threat in the passing game, and yet I still think most teams view him as mostly a blocking tight end. And so I think we're just going to see BYU is going to keep capitalizing on teams doing that sort of thing until teams realize, hey, this guy is actually a threat, and we're going to need to really pay attention to him on passing routes. He even brings in a nice hurdle at the end of this play. Pretty awesome. BYU finds himself in another 4th and short. Ball's on about the 9-yard line. And we see a really nice running play here with Enoch Nawahine. The action that we do here is actually very similar to what we ran on that 4th down that I broke down earlier. Very similar run concept to what we did before, but I believe that they might be running to a different side. You see blocks coming this way. All the line is sliding down this way, taking zone steps. And then in the way that a zone scheme works is that the line is shifting this way, and the running back's job is to be able to see the hole that opens up. They also bring Ethan Erickson around to kick out on the edge. But you see that, I forget who this is. It might be Darius Laster again coming over on the zone, on the motion here. This edge player is too worried about the potential jet sweep that Ethan Erickson doesn't have to guard him. Ethan Erickson is looking, Ethan Erickson, if he would have had the ball, he could have run in for a touchdown. This play was so well executed. And it was just a play that SMU was not expecting. Sometimes that's the name of the game, is you need to have a play that the other team isn't necessarily expecting. And even though zone or inside zone is a play that BYU runs often, and if I'm saying if I'm saying it's zone, that it's inside zone, and someone else views this play as another type of run scheme, I would love to know. Like I said, I'm trying to learn more about run scheme, but that's what this looks like to me. Anyway, just awesome. You see the BYU offensive line just washes everybody down. That edge defender there is too worried about the motion man, and Enoch essentially is just able to walk in. Beautiful play. After the touchdown run from Enoch Nawahine, BYU elects to go for it for 2. You got a bunch formation up here to the top, and Keanu Hill is isolated down on the backside here. BYU throws a fade to Keanu Hill. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of fade routes, especially in this sort of situation. They're just not a very high percentage play. Every analytic type thing I've ever seen or heard of says that the goal line fade is not a high percentage play. I felt that way. I'm thinking of Boise State 2022 with Puka Nacua. That circus catch that Puka Nacua made for the touchdown that won us the game. I didn't like that play call. Even with a player as good as Puka Nacua, he was millimeters away from that play not being good enough, and BYU would have lost that game against Boise State. This play again, Jake Retzloff throws this ball about as perfectly as it possibly could have been thrown. Keanu Hill is able to get around his guy, but even still, you see this defender is almost able to break up this pass. So, like I said, not a huge fan of the goal line fade. There are a few select players who do it at a really high rate and are really good at it. But like I said, Jake throws this about as well as you could hope for. Keanu is able to make a nice catch. And then, it's just inches away from being broken up by that defender. Maybe you could say Jake could loft it in a little bit more so it drops into the bucket a bit. But kind of like I said earlier, it's hard to complain too much when the results are good. And that was pretty darn good ball placement. This next play comes right after that beautiful interception by Mark Collins. BYU's backed up. I believe they're on their own 4-yard line. And Hinkley Rapati is a warrior, and he comes back into the game after being banged up. And BYU runs the ball with him. He has a really nice run here to get us out of this really bad spot. But I think on the very next run, he kind of comes up lame again, and he's limping. So great run there by Hinkley Rapati, but unfortunate that he wasn't able to keep going. This next play is Jake's second interception on the day. And I'll be honest, when this first happened, I was pretty mad at Jake. And then as I rewatched it, I've actually kind of come around. I don't think this interception was a real bad play by Jake Retzloff. I think this is a play that could have been made by anyone on any level. It's bad luck. So let's watch it. And maybe we'll even slow it down a little bit on some of these others, and we see that this play was was just very lucky for 81, who 81's a good player, don't get me wrong, but I think he really lucked out to be in this good of a position on this play. So you see, it looks to me like they're trying to do some sort of interior stunt here where they do like a cross. And 81 gets tripped up. He falls down and just happens to pop up right as Jake Retzloff is releasing the ball. And so he's able to just stand right up. Jake Retzloff throws the ball, and he just lucks into that interception. Heck of a tackle there by Braden Kime. So I want you to look this in just a second. It's going to show us a different view, and just look. Imagine, so Jake Retzloff isn't looking from this angle; he's looking from even lower. And so as he's going to release this ball, all he sees is this big guy in his face. He can't see this guy at all, and so it's a really bad luck play. See, look here, you got Jake Retzloff. He's about to throw this. It's a tight end screen here to Keanu Hill. Now, I will say this, even if this play is completed, like I said earlier, teams are keying on Keanu Hill. You have multiple people who are watching him. I much prefer a tight end screen to be run to one of our blocking tight ends because teams do not care as much about them. If you're trying to convince a defense that Keanu Hill is staying in to block on a passing play, most teams don't expect them to do that. They expect Keanu Hill to be out on a passing route on any passing down. They would expect a player like Taase to stay in and block, a guy like Ray Paulo, Mason Fakahua. All of those kind of players, a team is going to expect them, okay, yeah, that makes sense. He might stay in and help block, not Keanu Hill. And so using him in this way, I don't think is an overly effective play. I think when you see these tight end screens work, oftentimes it's thrown to the backup tight end. It's thrown to the blocking guy, and that's when it works really well. But if you just watch here, that guy is not in Jake Retzloff's vision. If anything, he's on the other shoulder, and he just happens to stand up and luck into that interception. You could maybe say Jake needs to see that, but I think that, like I said, that could have happened to Patrick Mahomes, that could have happened to Tom Brady, any of the best players. That's a very fortunate play for 81 and a very unfortunate play for Jake Retzloff. I think the reason why we feel so angry about it is because of all of the other times that Jake Retzloff has just not taken very good care of the ball. And so our automatic assumption for him is, oh, it must have been a bad play by him. I don't necessarily think that's the case on this play. I think that it was a lucky play for the defense. This next play is a good example of just the difference between play calling and execution. We've seen zone blocking schemes in this game. We've seen sometimes where it does work, sometimes where it doesn't work. That fourth down try with Miles Davis, it got blown up. Then we saw it blocked and executed absolutely perfectly on that Enoch Nawahine run. Here's another example of a time when we just have one missed assignment that stopped this from being a very productive play. Right here on the backside, Ethan Erickson just can't quite handle the inside penetration from his man. And this guy is just able to come through here and work his way down. Otherwise, I think Enoch is able to get up here and maybe able to shimmy up through there for a nice, 4-yard, 5-yard gain or so. But that's just a good example of, sometimes we look at that and we just say, man, I just hate that play call. We're backed up. We're not getting yards on that. And yet, there's an execution factor there as well that play should have worked, and it really did work with the exception of just one spot. And I'm not trying to call out Ethan Erickson in this example. He's a good player. He blocked his butt off all night and played really well, but this is just one example where sometimes the other team makes a play. This is a crucial play for BYU. It's 3rd and 8. About 5 minutes left in the game. Game's tied up. And BYU goes with a little swing pass here to Miles Davis. And honestly, the play is set up really nicely for Miles Davis. He's got tons of room to work with. And yet we just see, again, Miles is just a guy that, man, I feel bad. I'm sure he's a great young man. I'm sure he works hard. He's talented. And we see him on the very next play make one of the plays of the game. And yet this is just a perfect example of what I've said. The biggest, fastest guy is not always the best player. Some guys are just have that it factor, just know how to run with the ball in their hands. And you see Enoch here, he's just a little indecisive. He's a little slow with his cuts. And I think, honestly, he chose the wrong hole to go through. I think maybe he should have tried to go in between Chase and Cody there. I don't know. I just view this as a play that if this is Hinckley Ropati or Miles, or excuse me, LJ Martin catching this pass, I think this is a first down easily. With the amount of room that he had to be stopped a yard short, I just think we have to have that extra yard there. And yeah, on the next play, we end up converting it. Spoiler alert. But this is a play that I just think you got to get that extra yard, Miles Davis. It was you had tons of room in front of you. You had your receivers blocking really nicely. We need that yardage there. I just talked about what Miles Davis doesn't always do really well. This play is a great example of what he does really well. Also, this is just a perfect example of just a beautifully drawn up play. Beautifully drawn up play by Aaron Roderick. Perfect time, perfect execution, perfect play design. Like I said, I have some issues with some of the things A-Rod does at times, and yet this play is a good example of why I'm hesitant to call for him to lose his job. Because yeah, there are times when stringing plays together and certain aspects of the run design aren't always my favorite, but then you get beauties like this that are just really nice. So we have as BYU runs a lot of these kind of fake jet sweep motions, and it just helps. I mean, you see it here. One of the reasons this play works is that you notice SMU is in man defense. When Keelan Marion goes in motion here, this guy follows him all the way across the formation, which means that there is no corner out here. I'm not sure if BYU was banking on that or not. I'm not sure if they take that into account. The fact, if this had been zone defense here, this cornerback probably makes this tackle, and it might even get stopped for a loss. But because I'm guessing BYU knows that in these short yardage situations, SMU tends to play man-to-man defense. And so this motion is effective, one, because it draws the cornerback across the formation, but it's also going to influence how quickly these linebackers respond to the speed option. BYU runs speed option a lot. It's one of their go-tos. One of the things I like here is that generally speaking, you run speed option to the side that the running back is on. But on this play, that fake jet sweep gives Miles Davis enough time to loop around here, and they were able to run speed option back this way. It's just a beautiful, simple variation on a play that they run all the time. So let's watch this play. Motion. Jake does just a great job. He gets pounded there, but gets the pitch away. Nice, accurate pitch. And then we see what makes Miles Davis a special player and a player that's hard to keep off the field. He's got that burst. And even though he's not able to take it all the way to the house, on this sort of play, he's able to get more yardage than any of our other running backs would have been able to. I think most of our other running backs probably would have been tackled by 54 there, but Miles just has that speed, and he's able to take it. So yeah, this is the last offensive play that we're gonna break down here. Shortly after this play, they're able to get a field goal that puts them up, and the defense does the rest. But this was just such a beautiful play drawn up by A-Rod. like I said, a simple but beautiful variation of a play that they run all the time, and that's one of the things I think that A-Rod does well. So that's all the plays that I'm going to break down here. I just want to talk a little bit about some of my overall thoughts of this game. Jake Retzloff was not good. I think that anyone watching the game came away with that feeling. And yet, looking at the stats here, just look at the quarterback comparison. If I were to ask after that game, if I were to ask BYU fans, hey, who would you rather have as your quarterback this year, Jake Retzloff or Kevin Jennings from SMU, or even Preston Stone from SMU? I bet you almost anything that the average BYU fan on Twitter would be saying, oh, I would much rather have Kevin Jennings or Preston Stone as my quarterback. Jake Retzloff is horrible. He is trash. And yet, look at these stat lines. Jake Retzloff ended the game. He had over 50% completion percentage. Now, that's nothing glamorous. Don't get me wrong. You want your guy well over that. But you look here. Kevin Jennings, under a 50% completion percentage. Preston Stone, right at 50. Jake Retzloff had more yards. Part of that, a lot of those yards came on that big pass to Darius Lassiter, but it still is what it is. Kevin Jennings threw an interception. Jake Retzloff had one horrible interception, and one that, if you watch this video, you know that I don't necessarily think was his fault. And then in terms of running, you'd say, yeah, but Kevin Jennings is so much of a better runner than Jake Retzloff is. Yeah, he probably is a better runner. But you look at their stats, 9 carries for 38 yards with a long of 15. Jake Retzloff had 10 rushes for 35 with a long of 12. I mean, it's actually pretty comparable. So like I said, there were times in that game where I thought we might be better served by going to Gary Bohannon. And yet I don't think that the game was as bad as many BYU fans would have you believe. SMU was a good team. And while Jake struggled mightily, we were still able to come away with a win. I hope I highlighted some of the good things he did while also talking about some of the things that he did poorly. There were a lot of plays that weren't on this highlight video that I reviewed, times where he was just inaccurate, where he was throwing passes into the dirt. And yet, when it counted, Jake Retzloff was able to make some plays, and we were able to get a win. So I expect him to play against Wyoming, and I think he'll probably look pretty good against Wyoming because they're not a very good team. And we'll just kind of have to see what happens going forward. He needs to work on his turnover issues, both fumbling and throwing the interceptions. He needs to be willing to know when you just need to punt the ball, and sometimes the defense is going to win a play, but you need to live to fight another day. So that's my offensive recap for this game, BYU versus SMU. I know this has been a long video. If you stuck with me till the end, you're a psycho and you love BYU football as much as I do. So thanks for watching.